Namaste. Well, I want to extend some of the insights that we talked about the last time and the other day. That the path of sadhana is also a path of emotional development and ultimately emotional maturity. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, really it comes down to happiness. If a person is perfectly self-realized, they're also perfectly happy. And they're completely satisfied with whatever their life is. How is that? Well, let's take a look at the good old chart. You should pause the video here and study it if you're not familiar with all the terms and their meanings, because everything we say from now on is going to be based on it. So you should get very familiar with these terms, these four states of consciousness. Now, in Jagrat consciousness, especially before beginning any kind of spiritual life, we are frustrated, angry, needy, and neurotic, and, well, ignorant. Why? Because we think that the body is the self, that the world is real, that cause and effect is the scientific law of everything, and so on and so on. Because we aren't self-realized. So, in this stage, performance of religious rituals is prescribed in the Vedas for attainment of material prosperity and satisfaction. Because if your mind is distracted by material desires, you can't meditate. I mean, you can't even sincerely worship God, because your mind is all over the universe. It's always going to be thinking of the next thing you're going to do and all like this. So the Vedas give the ritualistic sacrifices of the karma kanda, the temple worship, and the individual sadhana to create good karma that brings success, happiness, lawful enjoyment. In other words, without creating bad karma due to hurting people or other beings. And it gives knowledge, because all of these rituals are interspersed with Vedic passages giving knowledge about the subtle world, the nature of consciousness, ultimately. That's why Mandukya Upanishad is our favorite. It's the rock on which we built our whole teaching. These four states of consciousness are the absolute in its manifestations in different realms or different states of consciousness. So, after some time of performance of Vedic rituals, one becomes wealthy, or at least, adequately funded, and gets satisfaction in ordinary material enjoyment. One gets a wife or other partner, one has friends and associates, one has facilities and the ability to use them to satisfy God through karma yoga. So in this stage, one becomes at least materially satisfied. But there's still the issue of emotional satisfaction. Because just because you have a bunch of toys and some wealth and maybe a partner doesn't mean you're going to be emotionally satisfied. Most of us experience emotional trauma when our first love affair doesn't work out. And for almost everybody, it doesn't work out. I mean, you get these two young kids, they don't know anything. It's a recipe for disaster, and it often is. So, everyone has this trauma of their first love affair gone wrong. How do we heal that trauma? Well, that's what bhakti is all about. Bhakti is the next step, the next stage on this diagram of consciousness. Swapna consciousness, dream consciousness, or thought consciousness, consciousness of the mind, internal as opposed to the external consciousness of the senses in Jagrat. Swapna is about the internal consciousness of the mind, dreams, thoughts, and so on. And this is the realm of Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, we find our Ishta Devata, which is the form of God that can counteract the emotional traumas of early life. Yes, psychologically it's a form of compensation, but so what? The point is, it allows you to have experiences in the subtle realm that fill you with confidence. Not only now are you relatively wealthy and well off and secure and safe, but you also now have a reliable source of emotional well-being. So this relationship with God can look like anything, whatever you happen to need. You can have a distant, sort of neutral relationship, or you can have a relationship as a servant, as a friend, as a parent, or even as a lover. God or Goddess is not afraid to get into a deep relationship with you. They made you. They know you better than you know yourself, and they know exactly what you need. And I mentioned before in this series that my Ishta Devata appeared to me spontaneously before I even knew what Ishta Devata was, and that relationship grew into the most wonderful and satisfying emotional and sexual, psychosexual relationship. It's still going on today. So then what? The next stage is Sushupti consciousness, or emptiness, the void. And the yoga for that is Raja Yoga, or meditation. Now, if you've ever come in contact with the void, you know it's a scary thing. And the reason it's scary is that we have to give up everything to enter the void. You have to be willing to let go of it all, right down to even the desire to be an individual, to exist at all. You even have to let that go. So entering the void is a scary proposition for most of us. But that's the next stage on the yoga path. One becomes satisfied, then one becomes confident enough that if you enter the void and let's say you fail and you fall back into your previous state of consciousness, which is going to happen in the beginning. You know, it's like learning to walk in a whole new space, a whole new dimension. So, of course, there are going to be mistakes and fall down. That's okay, that's expected. But the point is, you have your Ishta Devata relationship and you have your Karma Kanda relationships with God and its rewards to give you comfort and confidence to face that emptiness, that void, which is so scary because it means the end of everything. And you know this is the reality because by now you have enough spiritual knowledge to know the material world is just Maya. It's just an illusion. For entertainment purposes only. Don't take it serious. So anyway, by giving up everything and becoming nothing, being, doing, having nothing, zero, emptiness, shunyata, becomes our greatest refuge. Because there is no other there. And it is the other that causes suffering. Isn't it? In the other states, in Swapna and Jagrat, there are others, many others. And so there can still be suffering, although Swapna, there is less suffering there because we can control the content of Swapna so much more than we can in Jagrat. But in Sushupti, there is no content. There are no objects. There are no perceptions. And the Buddha called this neither perception nor non-perception. You know you can perceive things, but there just isn't anything to perceive. So how do you prove to yourself that you're conscious? This is the issue that comes up. So this, over time, by long practice, leads to Turiya, awareness of awareness. If the question is, am I conscious or not? Am I aware or not? Because I don't see anything? Well, we have to develop awareness of awareness. Then we know. And actually, of course, we already have awareness of awareness. We already have Turiya, or we wouldn't be aware of the other states of consciousness. But in the beginning, that is not at all obvious. In the beginning, it seems like, oh, this is all very deep and mysterious and strange. But as you acquire experience in meditation and going deeper, and then you find that, hey, actually, these higher states aren't such a strange place after all. In fact, it feels more like home than the world does. Because in beginning with Swapna and Sushupti, we are freed from the tyranny of the other. You see? So there's no suffering. Less suffering in Swapna, no suffering in Sushupti. And finally, by developing or discovering our awareness of our awareness, we come to Turiya, the fourth, the highest, Brahman. And this is what we call self-realization, enlightenment, nirvana, nibbana. All these terms mean the same thing, which is this unary, non-dual state where there's not only no objects, there's no subject. There's no duality, no boundary between the seer and the seen, because they're one. Although in that state, it doesn't make sense even to think of them as being one. In fact, it doesn't make sense to think at all at that state. You don't need it, because thinking is also a kind of duality, isn't it? Mocking up thoughts and then being aware of them. We don't need to do that in Turiya because we are everything. We are Brahman. We are identified with the whole, the source of everything. So this is the highest state. And when we get back into Mandukya Upanishad, we'll go very deep into the nature of Turiya. And you'll see that it's actually the default or root state of the being, of the self, of you. And that leads to spontaneous enlightenment. So stay tuned. Aum Tat Sat. Aum Shakti Aum. Aum Namah Shivaya.